every studio has been working independently for a while. Not that there's been that much besides PDS until the last 2 years, but inside the PDS, it's been quite a lot of like people moving from different projects depending on needs, from basically a monthly basis. Don here can probably explain how fun it is when someone loots his team members for another project.
Yeah, that happens a lot. But then on the other hand, like if you're smart like me and you put your vacation after everybody else, that means like while the project leads are away on vacation, I can steal all of their underlings for my project instead, which works great.
That's a cunning plan, and that reminds me, all project leads has mandatory vacation at the same time next year.
So on a bit of a related topic, how are project leads... Sorry, did you have a question?
Hold it closer to your mouth.
A little closer to my mouth. Sorry about that. This is kind of weird. I'm actually not used to having real people in front of me. And the internet doesn't count. This is just, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with it. With project leads, how do you decide who does that? Did you just say, hey guys, listen, I think it's time, I've got this sketch for Hoi 4. What do you think? Can you throw me some people? Or is it picked? What goes on there?
Well, I guess it's kind of sort of a natural progression, but it's more like, you know, I'm busy coding away on something and Johan goes like, hey, we really need someone to manage a project. And I'm like, but I'm busy coding. And then going just, we really need to. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm a project lead. So that's basically what's happened. And people kind of naturally move upwards when they've been there for a while. You know, kind of the ins and outs and how everything's going to be working, roughly how long stuff is going to take, which is one of the more important things for a project lead as well to know. So yeah, it's kind of flows upwards.
Yeah, we tend to have like people that has been working on quite a lot of games, then they end up as project leaders, because when you have been in the industry for 5-6 years, then you can be trusted to handle a project.
Right, it makes sense. Now, recently you guys have started playing a lot of your multiplayer sessions, your development copies of games live on Twitch, and I think it's been really interesting to watch. But before you started doing that on Twitch, was that a regular activity at the office? Did you have big multiplayer games as a way to hammer out bugs, and was that just part of office culture? Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing that since, when did we release In Nomine? 2008, 2009? Yeah, Björn was working then, so yeah, every week. Jakob can elaborate on the multiplayer traditions.
I also think one of the big surprises we've seen, like I told you before, is how well the games actually stream and how interested people are in watching the PDS streams. You might think the games are a bit too slow, but it works very well. You get this almost soap opera level where people scheme against each other on the forums and insulting everyone, and then go battling out in the game.
Another limiting factor early on at the company, I was talking about 2008 before, right? We weren't even 32 people at the company in 2008. You could never have a full 32-player multiplayer session back in those days. So growing is also good for multiplayer.
That makes sense. It looks like we've got a question from the audience back here.
Gelbes Mikrofon.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have the following question. Did you ever consider making educational games?
Was the question if we make any educational games?
Yes, or if you consider doing it perhaps in the future. Because if I play the Paradox games, they contain a large amount of information about history, about the people. And the interesting thing is, I heard that teachers in Sweden actually can ask you for the games they want to teach the children. Right. And did you consider perhaps filling that niche to make educational games? Yes.
Right. I didn't catch all of that.
Oh, sorry.
But regarding educational games, is that our games, Hearts of Iron 2 actually has been used for in classes at UCLA. And whenever a teacher gets in touch with us and they've used our games as an educational tool, we usually send a bunch of keys over to them and they can use it as educational tools. So if everybody turns into a teacher now and wants 32 keys for our games, I'll know what's up. So, don't know.
Yeah. We've actually had a running project in Sweden trying out, actually offering openly free to every high school in Sweden copies of our games. So I think a good educational game is a good game that's educational. It's not an educational game that's trying to be good. You need to start with game design, work from there, and then naturally people will learn and to enjoy the game, and it's in a historical setting.
So, we do have another question back there.
Does it? What? Yes. All right. Very simple question regarding the new expansion for Crusader Kings 2. You say you're making customizable titles and kingdoms and empires, but what's that going to mean for the customizer DLC? Rather simple.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So was the question about the features in the CK2 expansion?
The new expansion promises customize.
Talk about the expansions in the newly announced CK2
and what it means for the already existing customizer DLC.
Johan, I think you're better answering that than me.
I got an actually very good answer on that. There's a nice little, not little, he's bigger than me. There's a nice guy somewhere in the crowd that has a Doom Dark on his back of his shirt, I think. That's the designer of it. So go find him and he'll be able to tell you. He's there. Stand up, please, Henrik. He's the guy behind Crusader Kings. He's the mastermind, he's the hero. So he can answer, he'll answer.
All right. Titles in Crusader Kings 2 will not be customizable as such. But if you own like 2 duchies, whichever 2 duchies that might be, you will be able to create a kingdom, right? Or 2 kingdoms, any kingdoms you like, and you can create an empire. And that's how it's going to work.
So I have a question about the historical content of your games. It is crazy that you guys can, especially with something like Crusader Kings 2, you can go to one of your bookmarks and find all these counts and barons and dukes and this and this. How many of those are actual real people, and how did you find out who was ruling every one of these places in a given period of time?
Well, I can start with the guy named Frederick Wester, who's a hunchback maniac. He's not an actual historical person though, in the game. No, not really. But he's only IRL. But Johan.
We've had people hired full-time that's been just researching, reading historical books and looking at the internets and stuff. But most importantly, there's a lot of betas. Beta testers that have been into the game since even before announcement, that's been doing the bulk of the research work. It's people like you here that are in the betas that some I've met today that's been doing it, and it's not us, it's our fans that provide most of the research.
Supposedly, I'm also in one of the characters in CK2, but I don't have that DLC, so I don't know.
Well, we're gonna have to go and find you then. Looks like we have a question right in front.
Hello. I wanted to ask if you ever considered using your most successful franchises to create some products in other fields, like, I don't know, maybe Crusader Kings card game, or a U4 board game, or a Warlock war game, or I don't know.
Miniature war game or something like that. That's a great question. Making products like a card game or a board game or something based on one of your titles.
So that is a really good idea, and it's something that we've tried in the past, and we'll keep on trying. For a brief time, there was a game called Hearts of Iron, the card game, Well, it's not a secret. It was out. It was a good game, and we'd love to revisit it and maybe make a board game and stuff. But you have to remember, what we are good at is making computer games. But we're always looking for the opportunity to do something cool. What would you like to see? If you need to tell us what you like to see, and we'll explore that and try to do it.
Wasn't also, I mean, Europa Universalis is a board game to begin with. It's important to notice it. But yeah, no, we're looking into this part of the market. We're looking into those kind of opportunities all the time. But like Sham says, it's also about what we're good at and what we know. Board games is not our strongest suits. We are making computer games. We're a genius like Johan and Henriks do their job. That's where we're strongest.
I don't know. I think you could do a one-to-one translation. All you have to do every turn in the board game is make sure to update over 1,000 provinces to make sure the tax income is correct. And you just do that. It's really short. You play in 4 to 6 decades.
20,000 individuals.
20,000 individual units, all tracked. Yeah. Nothing else? I didn't have another question prepared. Oh, no. Oh, cities, yes. So, actually, I don't know what I'm allowed to ask, because I have maybe seen a little bit more.
Ask whatever you want.
Nice. So, well, I guess the big question is the resources, because there's something I know about the city. There are resources below the ground that can affect the feel of your neighborhoods.
Yes. So, yes, there are resources in the game, and so you can create oil industry, forest industry, farmlands, stuff like that. I'm not sure what more you want to know about it. So, if you look at the size of the cities, it's so big that you will also have. I mean, if you go to Stockholm and that kind of size, you do have farms, you have industries. You maybe not have mines, but probably find a coal mine in that kind of area in Cologne. So you will have all that will be in a game. You will be able to dig it up and get it as part of your city.
Well, one of the things that I saw is the ability to sort of designate areas in a city and enact rules and laws.
Yeah.
You can encourage certain industries, and what other kind of laws can you enact?
Exactly. I mean, even if you had, let's say, they found coal under in the middle of Cologne or under the dome, you probably wouldn't want to allow them digging for coal regardless. That might be a problem. So you need to sort of designate what kind of area it is. And if you have oil and you designate oil industry, you will get oil industry grown up, or mining industry, or forestry, or agriculture.
So you can use these sort of designations to try to encourage really green cities?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can force recycling, you can, a lot of things, yeah. I mean, you can have everything from, open carry gun laws, if you want to have this hardcore Republican American town, or you can go all Major Bloomberg on everyone and outlaw anything fun anyone's ever done. It's your city and you can do a lot in that sense.
Can you set individual tax rates for different regions or something like that?
So we're looking into that part. It's absolutely something we partly use. Exactly if it be a policy that says a lower tax, or if you actually be able to manage the budget. You can manage it on a school, but if you can manage on districts as well, we're exploring the best way to sort of getting the experience we want.
Great. Looks like we've got a question waiting.
Yeah. Hello, guys.
Need the microphone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Could you promise that there will be no traffic problems with transport corporation cars in the cities too? Like there will be 20 transportation cars on a road and they block the whole city transportation system. It was before in Cities 1 and other games like this universe. So could you promise us, or could you say something about the traffic system maybe?
So you want to know if they can promise that there are no traffic problems?
Less than before.
Okay, so this is something that we've talked to Colossal Order about at great length, and this is something I've talked to a lot of people about. It's very interesting how they've done the design in other city builders. I won't say which ones, but what happens is that you want a game where you have your simulation layer running in the bottom. What you do then is that you take a visual layer and have that represent the system underneath. What happened in that other game was that they flipped it. the visual representation was more important than the simulation layer itself. So what happened was that if a garbage truck actually didn't pick up the truck visually because of a bug based off on how the traffic system worked, that simulation layer broke down. So what we're trying to do in this game is to do it the other way around. The visuals aren't as important as having a simulation of a city that actually works well. There are instances where we'll compromise a bit just to make sure that the visuals aren't totally screwed up, but we're going to strive for a balance. So you can email Jacob if there are traffic problems in the city on launch.
Also, I mean, if you don't build proper highway ramps and mass transit, you will have traffic problems. I always have it because I'm lazy and I just want to build a big city and I never sort of get the traffic solved. The city I live in, Stockholm, has the exact same problem because no one's built a new highway in 25 years, so we have traffic problems as well. So there will definitely be traffic problems, but there will be intended traffic problems as part of the gameplay.
Yeah, so if you couldn't make a terrible traffic grid, that would be a sign there would be something wrong with the game.
Exactly, yeah.
I think we've got 2 more questions waiting, and then we'll have to maybe wrap this up.
I would like to go back briefly to EU4 and the Out of War expansion. And I'm specifically interested in the 30 Years War that was mentioned in the presentation. Because right now, for instance, countries can switch sides in a war, and countries can join a war more than 60 days after it started, and that makes modeling a 30-year-long war kind of difficult. And is the expansion going to address that?
So if I understand that correctly, it's about the idea of a country switching sides mid-war, which happened historically?
Right, more dynamical wars, because, like, for instance, the 30 Years War didn't have the same countries on both sides when it ended 30 years later than when it started.
It's an interesting question. So he wants to know, historically, for example, in the 30 Years War, the countries involved in the war at the start of the war were not necessarily the ones there at the end, and including, it's possible for a nation to switch sides partway through the war, either by leaving and returning or just literally changing alliances halfway through. Is that something that you guys have considered?
Yeah, that's something that's kind of been in EU since early EU1, and it's happened quite a lot in our multiplayer games that people swap alliances in the same. And the AI, though, doesn't enter war after 60 days have passed because there's a lot of exploitability that has been handled that way.
Right, so a human player could do it, but you're saying the AI won't do it just because you're afraid it would lead to other problems?
Yeah.
If you saw I think the last session or the session before that, this is exactly what happened to France. We got France tricked into a big war and all their allies changed side. And they got ganked. So it's quite easy in multiplayer that people will switch side during wars.
I think we've got one final question right over here, and then we're all out of time.
Hi, I'd like to ask, is there any plans to integrate different time frames or different games in the future maybe? Like CQ2 is now, your save games can go into EU4. Are there any more plans like that?
So you're talking about overlapping time periods between CK2 and EU4 or Victoria or something?
Yeah. Whenever we announce Victoria 3, we will have an expansion or a DLC that exports to it.
We can't confirm or deny that statement. I'm sorry, people.
This is a good time for a Rome 2 comment as well. Missed that.
Yeah.
No comment.
All right, so unfortunately, it sounds like we're all out of time.
All right. So everyone who wants to go for a beer with us afterwards, come with us and we'll go have a beer, okay? Anyone who still wants to hang out with us is free to do so. So we're going to go out and have a beer and you can join us.
See, everyone watching on Twitch, this is why you should have come.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.